Hey class, hope you guys are doing well. This is going to be a video on our unit about drugs. Okay, so this is one of the units that is required if you are interested in raising your grade. Okay, so make sure you guys watch my videos, complete the assignments related to each video. That way you can go ahead and, like I said, raise your grade to at least one letter higher. Alright, so unfortunately we didn't get to cover this in class, but I'm going to try my best to make some videos that would kind of replicate the effect of how it would be in class. All right, so normally what we would do would be this activity called Where Do You Stand, but I'm gonna go ahead and just briefly skim through that with my answers. Okay, so I or someone I know has been or is addicted to drugs. Okay, so I'm pretty sure a lot of us do know someone that has been or is addicted to drugs. I know some students may not, and that's okay. Do you think people are emotionally dependent on recreational drugs? So this question is asking, do you think that they go to drugs because they might be depressed or sad or stressed or frustrated, right? Do they go to drugs to cope with things? I think a lot of times people will answer true for the most part. Okay. I believe drugs are safe in moderation. What do you guys think? All right. So in my opinion, I don't believe drugs are safe in moderation because regardless of how much you take, it still impacts your body once you take it. Doesn't matter if it's just once or twice, but it also potentially increases the risk for addiction. We'll talk about that later. Drugs reduce people's potential. Okay, so the answer that I would say for this is true, especially if you are consuming drugs when you are adolescent. When you are a teenager, basically your brain is not fully developed. Your prefrontal cortex is responsible for major functions such as critical thinking, planning, reasoning, your personality, right? So if you are doing drugs, regardless if it's vaping, weed, whatever the case is, you are in prohibiting your prefrontal cortex to fully develop. So this is why it does reduce your potential. Okay, so the definition of drugs. There are two definitions. One is the definition for prescribed drugs, and second is for drugs that is used recreationally. Number one, a chemical substance, especially one prescribed by a medical provider that is used in the diagnosis, treatment, or prevention of a condition or a disease. So basically, you have this condition or disease, and a medical provider determines that, hey, in order to treat this condition or disease, you can go ahead and take this chemical substance that is prescribed to treat it. Okay? Whereas a second definition is a chemical substance, such as a narcotic or hallucinogen, that affects the central nervous system and is used recreationally for perceived desirable effects in personality, perception, or behavior. All right, so again, one is legal while one is not. They are both chemical substances. Again, the first one is when it is prescribed by a doctor to treat a condition, whereas the other one is you're using it recreationally, whether it may, again, to perceive desirable effects, maybe to make you relax, or maybe bring you out of your shell, or whatever the case is, or whatever the reason is, it is a recreational use. Okay, so talking about the central nervous system, right? So if you look at definition number 2, it says it affects the central nervous system. We're going to go over what the central nervous system is so that you are aware of how it is impacting your central nervous system and why that is important. Okay, so the central nervous system is part of the nervous system consisting of the brain and the spinal cord. All right, so as you already know, the brain and spinal cord is extremely important for all functions in life. Okay, so we're going to focus a little bit more on the brain. Okay, so the central nervous system is responsible for our thoughts, emotions, sensations, movements, and desires. It is also responsible for our breathing, heart rate, release of hormones, body temperature, etc. Higher functions of the brain include higher order thinking, reasoning, problem solving, and creativity. So as you can tell, the brain is essential and crucial for a lot of basic functioning things such as breathing. So I'm pretty sure nobody is telling themselves to inhale, exhale. No, our brain is responsible for that, as it sends signals and just basically controls other things such as a heart rate, releasing hormones, whether it may be adrenaline to finish a task or whatever the case is. Again, your brain is responsible for so much different functions, including higher functions such as higher order thinking, um, skills that you need in order if you want to be in jobs such as like lawyer or doctors. You're gonna need your brain, right? There are four major lobes of the brain. So the temporal lobe is important for hearing, recognizing faces, emotion, long-term memory. The occipital lobe is responsible for your sight. Parietal lobe is for touch and pressure, taste, body awareness, and spatial awareness. All right. And the frontal lobe is responsible for movement of body, personality, concentration, planning, problem solving, meaning of words, emotional reactions, speech, and smell. So as you can see, right, these are important functions that each lobe is required for, and maybe you can connect the dots and see, hey, if someone is under the influence, how does it specifically impact your brain? So for example, spatial awareness is meaning that you know the proximity of objects close to you, right? So that's why you might see people who are drunk, they might walk into tables or walk into certain things is because their spatial awareness is compromised. They don't really recognize what is in front of them, how far it is in front of them, where their body is in regards to that object. Okay, here is a picture, which is a visual about the brain, where each lobe is located, and again, their functions. And last but not least is the spinal cord. It carries information from the brain to the rest of the body, and it sends the information right back from the rest of the body back to the brain. Okay, it is in control of certain reflexive responses, such as involuntary movements. Example, if you try and put your finger on a hot stove, you're going to hesitate to follow through because your body is sending signals to saying, hey, this is hot, don't touch it. So it controls those involuntary movements. All right, so again, as you can see, our brain is responsible for so much important functions. What I want you guys to do is watch this video on your own time, and it's going to be useful for the questions that I will be providing to you via Google Classroom.